ओम परतत्वे सदा लीनो रामकृष्ण समाज्ञया यो धर्म स्थापन रतो वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहम्. Today we are going to start a new treatise, new scripture by Swami Vivekananda, and the name of that treatise is Bhakti Yoga. Remember, the main word is yoga. Bhakti is a qualifying word. We have just now finished Karma Yoga. So there also we saw that yoga is the main word, karma is the type of yoga. So bhakti is the type of yoga. Why I am pointing out is, there is a vast difference between bhakti and bhakti yoga. Vast difference. Bhakti we see everywhere in the world almost. We do puja. What we do not do? Most of the people are always engaged in something called bhakti. But it is not bhakti yoga. What is the difference? I remember one very old cinema song, Hindi cinema song, very old. I do not know which cinema it was, but in the air it was a hit song in those days when I was a small boy. And the song is, तस्वीर तेरी दिल मेरा बहला न सकेगी, मैं बात करूँगा तो ये खामोश रहेगी, दिल से लगा लूँगा तो कुछ भी न कहेगी, तस्वीर तेरी दिल मेरा बहला न सकेगी. Evidently the context is, I hope you people understand this much Hindi, otherwise I will make it in English. I will tell the context and then tell the meaning. There is a lover and beloved, and due to some reason that girl has to go away. So she gives her photo and asks him to be satisfied with that. And then he sings, your picture will not entertain me. When I will talk with it, it will keep quiet. If I hug it to my chest, it will not say anything. So your picture will not entertain me. Now, that is our bhakti. We even do not, this is the ordinary worldly prem. And even there, the lover expects a response from the beloved. And we go on worshipping God without expecting that he should respond. This is our bhakti. And that is the difference between bhakti and bhakti yoga. All of us go on doing bhakti and never expect even that there should be a response. What bhakti is this? It can be bhakti, but it cannot be bhakti yoga. Now you understand the difference? Yoga means tat prapti upaya. Yoga has only one meaning applied to the Swamiji's 4 yogas. Yoga is tat prapti upaya. The methodical, the prescribed method for realizing God. That is the meaning of the word yoga. Now through what? Mainly what? That also we saw in the last chapter on Karma Yoga. That Swamiji said that this religion of Vedanta has various ways and none of them are exclusive of each other. Everything blends into the other. We cannot have karma we saw without bhakti. We cannot have karma without jnana. We cannot have jnana without bhakti, that we saw during our lectures on Narad Bhakti Sutra. We cannot have bhakti without knowledge. But Swamiji said that which preponderates, that name is given. So, here we must first define what is bhakti and then understand bhakti yoga. Now we are not going to define bhakti as Narada has defined, no. ordinary meaning of the word bhakti. What you understand in bhakti? Two elements we understand. And I am quoting Swami Brahmanandaji, who used to tell in the name of Sri Ramakrishna. What Sri Ramakrishna told them we do not know, because we get the words we do not know, because Brahmanji is telling this in English. Brahmanji is telling that Thakur always told us, love and respect, respect and love. Now understand, love in the world is a misused word. And any love between any lover and beloved may take them to hell. And if there is respect, only respect, high respect, then we make a salutation from 100 feet. We do not want to go near. So love and respect, respect and love, that is what he used to say. Here respect means God is the highest thing in my life. That is called the respect. Swamiji will later on refer to Shandila Bhakti Sutras. And there the stages of bhakti are told Sammana, Bahumana, Priti, Vira, etc. So first they start from, it is a great thing in my life. God is the greatest thing, Sammana, Bahumana. God is great, not only great, but He is the greatest thing in life. There is nothing greater than God. But not very great. Very great many people are. And as I told you, you have to salute them from a distance. He attracts me. I love Him. He attracts me. I love Him. And love, what definition can you give? The ultimate definition of love would be, I want to get dissolved in Him. That can be the ultimate definition. I do not want to remain separate from Him. Without that, there is no love. So, love and respect, respect and love, that is the ordinary definition of the word bhakti. Whether we see this bhakti or something appearing as bhakti is a different thing. But this bhakti, when applied as a method to realize God, then it is called Bhakti Yoga. That is the first point which I want to tell you. Yoga is Tat Prapti Upaya. Again I refer that how many people go on doing something for God. They like God, they know God is great, but not much love sprouts. But they go on doing. Love also may be there, but they do not expect that God will respond. They do not expect that this love will grow. They do not expect that I will get merged in Him. So, this is what I wanted to tell, that Bhakti Yoga has a place of its own. And now we'll find that in a way I am telling, it is the most natural thing in life. Show me one person who has no heart, he may know or not. Show me one person who has no love, and this love is frittered away. Later on in the first chapter itself, Swamiji will tell us that Prahlada's definition. Love is something permanent in man, but it applies to something which is impermanent. Foolish people apply their love which is permanent towards objects which are not permanent. And then it is definitely wasted, definitely it is going to be wasted. Frustration can only be the result. But if the permanent love is given to a permanent object, then only it will be meaningful. So, this is what Bhakti Yoga is. And as our essential habit is Anubandha Chatushtaya, we must think what we are studying, why we are studying, who is studying and for what, and what is the matter and how we have to study. Evidently, if you take the how first, this Bhakti Yoga should produce in us intense desire to realize God. Intensest desire to realize God, who is our own real nature. This should be the result of. So how we should study? We should study with our heart. Bhakti, of course, belongs to the heart. But while studying Swami Vivekananda's Bhakti Yoga, we have to study it, we have to receive what Swamiji is teaching in our heart. There is a great difficulty these days, in this modern age. It was there, but now it is increasing. We apply our buddhi everywhere. But it is not something which can be received by buddhi. Some people listen only by the ears. Listen by one ear, goes out of the other ear. And most of the people receive by buddhi. And they think, first let me receive by buddhi. They stop there. If it can be received by heart, if our heart can receive those impressions which Swamiji is giving. Mind you, the book we are studying is Swami Vivekananda's Bhakti Yoga treatment, not XYZ. One who has realized God, one who has bhakti tremendously, bhakti non-parallel. Swamiji himself has described this, mind you. He said Sri Ramakrishna appeared to be a bhakta, but he was basically a jnani. He was jnani in his heart, he was covered by bhakti. And my heart is so soft. I have only bhakti inside. I cover it by my jnana. And for behaving in the world, I put my jnana in front, but inside I am all bhakti. So, such a Swamiji is defining or guiding us how to realize God through the faculty of love and respect which we have for God. And who are we? Evidently, two things come to our mind immediately. One is that, three things I will tell. We find that we have bhakti, or we do not have bhakti, we do not know. But our bhakti as it is today is not leading us to God. We want guidance. We are ready to change ourselves, that is the main point. In all adhikar, it is the readiness to change. And change not according to my own whim, not according to anybody's subjective idea, but we are ready to receive guidance in that respect from one who has realized. That guidance will be useful, otherwise how can anybody else guide? So, I am ready to change myself to attain my goal of life, and this change I will do according to the proper teaching of a proper person. This is the adhikar, or what we are. I expect me, myself and all of you to be like this. And then, with our heart, we are following Swami Vivekananda and he is explaining to us how to gain God. And that is a science. A science, Swamiji himself will tell in the first chapter, a science beginning, increasing and ending in love. That is what we are going to study. So now, with this, when we open the book, we find something strange. There is no preface by Swami Vivekananda here. There is no introduction by Swami Vivekananda here. But there is something. And that something defines the entire Bhakti Yoga. And that's why Swamiji has given two mantras, two shlokas if you like to call them, from Shvetashvatar Upanishad. So the Shvetashvatar Upanishad from that two shlokas. And what those shlokas? So that is the definition of Swamiji's Bhakti Yoga. Instead of any preface or introduction, Swamiji has given two shlokas of Shatashatar Upanishad and his own explanation of those shlokas in English. Satanmayo hi amruta isha samstho न सर्वगो भुवनस्यास्य गोप्ता ये ईशे अस्य जगतो नित्यमेव नान्यो हेतुर्विद्यते ईशनाय यो ब्रह्मांडं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तं हदेवम् आत्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये. So everything, the Adhikari Vishaya Sambandha Prayojan is explained here itself. Sa means he. Who is he? God. Swamiji himself has given the translation. Let us read that translation and then find out what it is. He is the soul of the universe. He is the soul. What is the soul? Soul means reality. Soul means the essential nature. Soul means without him the universe does not exist. That is the meaning of the soul. He is the soul of this universe. He is the reality of this universe. Without him there is no universe. He is the soul of the universe. He is immortal. That is what I told you, that if the permanent love is applied to temporary things, frustration will be the result, mind you. But if the permanent thing is applied to the permanent thing, he is immortal. God is not going to die. The whole world will go to death, but God will remain. New world will come, God will be there. He is before the world, in the world, after the world. So he is immortal. Everything of this has to be imbibed in our heart. Jnana. He is knowing. He is knowledge. He is knower. He is knowledge. Now this has to be understood. Not that he has memorized all the encyclopedia. I know. Actually he knows. You know. Actually he knows. My eyes see. Through that eyes I know. Through my eyes he sees. Through my eyes he knows. Through nose I smell. And I know that I am smelling. He smells. He knows the smell. This is called he is knowledge. This is such a depth of being that whatever I think I know, or you know, or anybody else knows in this world, or will know in the world, or new past tense or present or future, actually God the permanent is the subject of all the so-called subjects. He knows that I know. He knows that I do not know. He knows what everybody knows. That is the meaning, that is God. So bhakti is to be applied to the permanent thing, and we must know what is that permanent thing. Sarvago. He is everywhere. He has gone everywhere, that is the literal meaning. Swamiji says he is all-pervading. Pervading. This all-pervading again has to be properly understood. Sometimes we generally understand it not perfectly. God is everywhere. Now, God is in this room, God is in that room. What is in the middle space? God is in every being, God is in you, God is in he, she, it. What is between them? So Gita tells us avivaktam vivakteshu. God is all-pervading means there is no all. God is all. I will give two examples to understand. One is a balloon made of rubber. Now air is filled in the balloon. Generally our concept of God everywhere is like this. There is world and inside God is there. Then the world becomes bigger than God. Then the relation becomes like container and content. Now, God is outside the world is inside him. Then inside God something different cannot be there. So God is both inside and outside everything in the world. One small example may be given. There is a wave of water. From the first sight, it is a shape, and in that shape, water is there. But if you take away the water, will that shape remain? Even that shape is water. If you take out the air, then the rubber of the balloon will remain. So, better is to visualize God like this. He is with forms, He is the forms, He is without forms, He is everywhere. So, I remember one thing. I had gone to a very remote place, a hilly area near Solapur in Maharashtra. And the tribal people or local people, the students, I was asked to talk to the students, small boys and girls. I said, let me ask you first, do you believe in God? Everybody said yes. Then I said, where does God live? Then different influences were there. Somebody showed finger above. He lives there. These days when we see the celebrity so-called, whenever you talk of God, they show the finger above. There. Then what is in the middle? What is below? What is on all sides? There is no God there. So, the typical expression in Maharashtra which I like very much, they say, Anu Renu. Ishwar kahan rehte hai? Anu Renu mein rehte hain. He lives in every particle of this world. This we must remember. Sarva go. There is nothing. If you take away God in imagination, then world will not remain. Now, for example, in this table, God is there. Now, you cut it in half. Is God in this part or that part? Anu Renu. Every particle, God lives. This is an important concept when we think of God. Sarva go. Bhunasya Segopta. Who protects this world? Who protects? Kings and emperors and presidents and prime ministers, they protect their land. Actually, God protects this world. He has projected, He protects it, and when it is over, He swallows it also. But we have to remember in this way, we have to think of God in this way, that He protects. Now, world means world. I am in the world, you are in the world, He protects me, He protects you, He protects everything in the world. So, that is one relation with God. He is the protector. Now the main important point of Shvetasvatar Upanishad comes in the third line. Ye ishayasya jagato nityameva. Swamiji has translated the eternal ruler. The eternal ruler of this world not only protects. These presidents and prime ministers and kings come and they go. He rules through them. I will small example, I repeated many times. Governor, there is an order placed before him. Dotted line he has to sign. Governor is pleased to appoint so and so. He is about to sign. But at that time some other order comes to the governor. The president is pleased to dismiss the governor. Now he cannot sign. That is the position of all so-called rulers in this world. He governs. eternally. Past, present and future, even when the world was not there, he has to produce it. When the world is there, he rules. And finally he rules that world should be dissolved. And in between, any time, anywhere, not question of this country or that country. He is the eternal ruler of this world. Ye ishayasya jagato nityameva. Another important thing is told in the fourth line. Now, what is he? First of all, let us think at this point. Transcendent, immanent reality. Sarvatita, Sarvagata, Sarvatita, Sarvavyapi Brahma. That is how, this is the 17th shloka of the 6th chapter of the Shatashatar Upanishad. So up to that the shlokas which have come have shown him to be the one transcendent immanent reality of the world, beyond the world and pervading the world. And he is being pointed out, speciality of Shatashatar Upanishad. Such a reality only can rule the world eternally. There cannot be any other ruler. There is a general concept of, you call them dualist or whatever you like to call them, ordinary people, extra cosmic God, sitting somewhere, as I said above, there, beyond 9 clouds. And from there he rules the world. And the world unites, it may oppose him. So, such a reality which is outside the world cannot rule this world. The reality has to be immanent. The reality is to be all-pervading. But all-pervading reality, can it rule the world? Unless he is beyond the world. Beyond does not mean above or below. Beyond means when the world is not there, he is always there. He is not changing also. So the reality which is permeating this world and yet beyond, he only can rule the world. That is the fourth line. Nanyo hetur, negatively put, Nanyo hetur vidyate ishanaya. To rule this world, no other cause or no other person is possible to rule this world eternally. So, the speciality of the Shatashatar, which Swamiji has quoted in the beginning of Bhakti Yoga, is that what we call Brahman, what we call the absolute reality, can only rule this world. World cannot be ruled by any person less than him. Cannot be. Apparently he rules, she rules, and in some years they tumble down. Permanent ruling of the entire universe is only for the reality which is pervading and yet beyond. That is the meaning of the fourth line, and that is why Swamiji has given this in the beginning of this book. Then will love not sprout there? But in the second shloka, something more. How God created this world? First he requires an instrument to create, and that instrument is mind. So he becomes a person with the mind. And that person with the mind, universal mind, cosmic mind, is called Brahma or Brahmadeva. So Brahmadeva has come from, now in Puranas they say Vishnu's navel is a lotus sprout and in there Brahma is sitting. That is the gross description of some reality. But God becomes God with mind. That means from the absolute reality, a person comes out who is called Brahma. And this Brahma can create the world. Now, when the Brahma comes out, where is knowledge? Knowledge is permanently with God. We have already seen Jnana. As soon as the mind comes, universal mind comes, person with the universal mind comes, the subtler knowledge, the inside knowledge goes to him. Yo Brahmanam vidadati purvam. Purvam is before creating the universe, he creates Brahma. He creates himself as a person with the mind. And then, yo vai Vedansya prainoti tasmai. From him, the Vedas means the subtler knowledge. Vedas means the knowledge of the reality. Vedas means the knowledge of consciousness. Vedas means the knowledge of karma. Vedas means the knowledge of subtle entities. All that is permanently with the reality. Reality is described as existence, consciousness, bliss, Sat Chit Ananda. So that knowledge is always with him. As soon as from him we get a person with the universal mind, the knowledge goes to that universal mind. Yo vai Vedansya prainoti tasmai. Vai means certainly Vedas are transmitted to that person with the mind, to that God. Not the God with the mind, that God from whom this Brahma gets the knowledge. Tam Hadevam. Now how to know him? Atma Buddhi Prakasham. Oh, let us go to Swamiji again. He who at the beginning of creation projected Brahma, that is the universal consciousness, and who delivered the Vedas unto him. I read the last clause. Whose light turns the understanding towards the Atman. Whose light turns the understanding towards the Atman. Where do you get this idea? I tell you another idea here. There is a famous mantra. We call it Gayatri mantra. It is actually Savitri mantra, mantra of sun god. And there this idea is there. What is the idea? He is all pervading. As the sun shines and illumines the whole world, similarly, whose shine illumines the whole, gives knowledge to everybody. We meditate on him and we pray that he should he should ignite my buddhi, he should turn my buddhi towards himself. Another story I tell, Sri Ramakrishna's story. Sri Ramakrishna has told that when the Britishers came to India, electricity or gas was not there. So in the night, if people want to go to some place or do something, or somebody should not do bad things, so the company, government was called company, East India Company. So the company had appointed some sergeants who would move with a lantern. They had a lantern, each one of them, which was shaded from one side. And they used to patrol, they used to go in different areas. Now in that light, we could see each other. In that light, the sergeant could see everybody. But nobody could see the sergeant because that side is shaded. Now people generally don't take cognizance of that sergeant. They take him for granted. Their work is done. Hardly 1 in 1,000 people may say, thank you, sergeant. Otherwise, if the sergeant is absent, he will get abused, or the company will get abused. But rarest of the rare person is there, which looks at the light and knows that there is a sergeant behind it. So he prays, oh sergeant, will you turn your light on yourself? I want to see you, please. This is what is described here. One who turns our intelligence towards him. It is from him that we are able to think. It is from him that we are able to feel. But we do not think of him and we do not feel him. We see and see and feel outside world. But his grace will turn our mind inwards to see him. That is his main function in our life of bhakti. Atma Buddhi Prakasham, whose light turns the understanding towards the Atman, towards his own. Mumukshurvai and another, or that Adhikari Vishaya Sambandha Prayojan comes. I am keen on getting free. Some people said bhakti does not require freedom. Then I said it's bhakti, but not bhakti yoga. Mumukshur vai, definitely I seek freedom. Definitely I feel I am bound in this world, hands and feet. Definitely I want freedom. Then what to do? I surrender to him. That means this I is always the bondage. And with the I surrenders itself to God, the real ruler, one who turns my mind towards himself. If I surrender to him, if I give up in Karma Yoga we read na, self-abnegation. So, when this I subsides or is sacrificed or dissolves or out of love merges in God, then he will shine and then I will become free. So the Bhakti Yoga is defined here, that effulgent being, Swamiji says, seeking liberation, I go for refuge unto that effulgent one. Effulgent one, Devam. Deva. Deva is a normal word in Bengali. Deva means effulgent one. Deva means consciousness absolute. So, that is the effulgent one. From him, this Brahma came, and Brahma created the world. And he gave the Vedas to Brahma. And from Brahma, all of us will get that Vedas. But I surrender to him. Now, this idea is repeated in the Gita. People are deluded by my Maya, he says. But those who surrender to me will not suffer. So, this defines Swami Vivekananda's Bhakti Yoga. Everything has come here. The description of God, He being the greatest, the love between me and Him is deep, and I surrender to Him. The final result of love is surrender. Let me remind you of one story. In Belur Math, in the days of beginning days, Gita was taught to the brahmacharis. There were two teachers. Shuddhanand Swamiji, who was Swami Vivekananda's pet disciple, and Jagadanand Swamiji, who was mother's disciple. And Jagadananda was Advaiti par excellence. Not Shuddhanji was not there, I'm not saying, but then they had an examination. And only one question was there in the examination. According to Gita, what is the means of God realization? One question. Now, according to their choice, people wrote karma, jnana. What is the means of God realization according to Gita? And the question is, the examiners differed. While marking, Jagadananji is giving more marks to those who wrote about knowledge or jnana. Shuddhanji is giving more marks to those who wrote about karma. And now they found that the examiners differ. What to do? So both the examiners and all the students went to Mahapuruji, who was the Thakur's disciple, at that time president. So they went to Mahapuruji and did not tell about their quarrel or fight, disagreement. They asked him straight, Maharaj, will you please tell us, according to Bhagavad Gita, what is the way of God realization? He said, Prapatti, Prapatti, Prapatti. Prapatti is the name of Sharanagati. So he said, Prapatti, Prapatti, Prapatti. And then he said there are 18 yogas in the Gita. 18 yogas. That means methods. These 18 yogas lead to Prapatti. And Prapatti is the means of God realization. That is his explanation. Whether you call Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Kshetra, Vibhaga Yoga, Sannyasa Yoga, 18 yogas lead to Prapatti. And Prapatti gives God realization. Then he said, you asked me according to Gita, so I have told you. If you ask me, himself is putting, If you ask me what is Sri Ramakrishna's teaching, I will say it is the same thing. That is the complete answer. Answer should fulfill the listener. So he said, Prapatti, Prapatti, Prapatti. Gita has 18 yogas leading to Prapatti, and Prapatti is the means of God realization. You asked me about Gita, so I told you, if you ask me what is Sri Ramakrishna's opinion, I will say it is the same thing. That is his full statement. And so, this now, let me explain this Prapatti, otherwise this is another big problem. I have to give an example of the wrong Prapatti. There is a fight between two kings, and one king is defeated. Then he says, I surrender to you. Leave me, don't kill me, I surrender to you. And he is left, okay, you go. Then again he will gather strength and again he will attack. Muhammad Ghori attacked Prithviraj 18 times. 17 times Prithviraj defeated him. And was asking Prapatti, he left him. So, can that be surrender? The Maharashtra saint Jnaneshwar, he has best defined what is surrender. He says we make ornaments out of gold. And suppose the ornaments are conscious. What is their consciousness? We are nothing but gold. There is nothing in us which is not gold. He said that is Prapatti. Prapatti means there is nothing in me which is not God. Sri Ramakrishna every day evening used to say, Buddhi Krishna, Pran Krishna, Man Krishna. That is the meaning. My mind, my indriyas, my body, He. Not only His, but He, because He is all pervading. So, this is called Prapatti. The ornaments becoming aware that they are nothing but gold is called Prapatti. Not A surrendering to B. No, that can never be Prapatti. So, Mukshurvai Sharanamaham Prapadde. We being desirous of liberation, desire of liberation, surrender to that effulgent being, consciousness, who turns my mind towards himself. Whole process of Bhakti Yoga is being described, and that is why Swami Vivekananda has given this, instead of giving any preface or introduction or Mangalacharan, he has given these two shlokas to define the entire scope of the Bhakti Yoga which he is going to propound in details. And they are from 6th chapter of the Shatashatar Upanishad, 17 and 18 shlokas. Now we can turn our attention inside. What is the first chapter? Definition of Bhakti. Definition means characteristics. How to know whether this is Bhakti. Especially Bhakti which will become Bhakti Yoga. That Bhakti which will lead us to God, what is that Bhakti? We must be clear in our mind and heart. Unless we know Bhakti, we cannot proceed right direction. So the first chapter, Swamiji takes his definition of Bhakti. And in various ways he explains that. He makes us imbibe in our heart the Bhakti. Bhakti Yoga is a real, genuine search after the Lord, a search beginning, continuing and ending in love. This is his own definition. Most of this first para is taken from Narada Bhakti Sutras. Most of it. Bhakti Yoga. Definition of Bhakti is the heading of the chapter. But what Bhakti he wants? That which is Bhakti Yoga. That which will lead us to God. So Bhakti Yoga is a search. I will tell some very, very important thing. A topic which is going to come in Viveka Chudamani. important thing, very important thing. Moksha sadhana samagrayam bhaktireva gariyasi, Shankaracharya says. The so-called jnanis say, but that is not bhakti. Because in the next two lines he defines, Swaswarupa anusandhanam bhaktiriti avidiyate. Atma tattva anusandhanam bhaktiriti aparejago. Anusandhan. I asked them what is the meaning of the word anusandhan. You know anusandhan? I'll give an example. Some thief has gone into the forest. The police are chasing him. That is called anusandhan. Thief, who is thief here? The Lord. He has vanished. He has stolen all our hearts and mind and vanished. And we are chasing him. And where has he vanished? He has gone inside me. So I have to go inside myself to find him. This is called anusandhan. That is what Swamiji says, search. Search. If he has hidden somewhere, we must go there. You see, small boys play at hide and seek. Now all the corner places are exhausted. Then what do they do? They put some mask. They put some, mask. Mask is not this mask. Huh? The whole body is covered. The searcher is there. He has closed his eyes. In between the party to be searched, has put upon some mask and is sitting in front of him. And this searcher cannot search him. He is in front of him, but some other mask. Know what God has done? He has put my mask, your mask, and we are not able to find him. What I am is only a mask. He is inside. I have to search him there. So, Bhakti Yoga is a search. Search for our own reality. Search for the person who has stolen everything and gone inside me and inside you and inside everywhere. But what search? Real, genuine search. Each word is important. Many people feel, oh, I want God. And if you give them some sweets, God is God. If you give them kingdom of heaven, God is God. Whether the search is real, and he is not satisfied with that, he puts one more word, genuine. Real, genuine search after the Lord. Lord means he rules me, he rules the world, he is my governor, he is the protector of the world, he is inside me, he is outside me, he is everywhere, but where to search him? He has taken up my mask. So I have to go inside and search him. Beginning now, how to search him? What is the method? Love. Supreme attraction. Supreme attraction toward the highest being. Supreme attraction, the force is pulling me. He is pulling me. Self-centripetence, you can say. He is my reality. He is pulling me. That search after the Lord. Search beginning. Unless the love sprouts, bhakti has not begun. So it begins in love, and this love takes me inside and inside. This love takes me more and more near God, and this love so continues in growth of love and ends in love. What is the ending in love? Non-difference. Now further, end means further I cannot proceed. That is called the end. If I am merged in Him, if my reality is lost in Him, where shall I proceed? Otherwise, it has not become complete. So, Swamiji's definition is this. Now, this is from Narad Bhakti Sutra. Satu asmin parama prema rupa was the second sutra in Narada. That is what this is. And then, how to understand it? Bhakti, which becomes yoga. One single moment of the madness of extreme love to God brings us eternal freedom. Important words, madness. Sri Ramakrishna was called mad by people. The great sadhakas, Ramprasad, Kamalakanta, Premik, they say, I have become intoxicated. And people think I am intoxicated by wine. And let them say anything, I am intoxicated. So, what is madness? We must understand. It is the sixth sutra of Narad Bhakti Sutra. Yad gyatva matto bhavati, knowing whom one gets intoxicated. That is the madness. Now tell me, what is madness? Ordinary madness we see. That man, due to excessive attachment to something, has gone off his head. His behavior cannot be like ours. That is madness. Madness means his reasoning, his ideas, his behavior is completely different from what we call normal humanity. Abnormal is the word we use, but we wrongly use it. Abnormal really means above normal, but what we call mad people, they are subnormal, something gone wrong. Now, above normal. His consciousness is that God is the only reality. His consciousness is that the only source of joy or happiness or bliss in my life is God. Then what happens? Sri Ramakrishna is described in the Gospel. Swami has told in his book itself. A ship is going. In the ocean, there are some rocks which are magnets, huge magnets. If the ship goes near them, the magnet pulls all the screws and debris and nails, and the planks, they float on the water. The whole ship is broken because of the pull. So, when one reality is pulling my mind is above, my consciousness is changed, the level of consciousness is different, and so this is called madness. If our ordinary madness is subnormal, this madness is abnormal, above normal. Matto bhavati. So, one single moment of the madness of extreme love to God, what happens in the next moment? If you go to Narad Bhakti Sutra, yad gyatva matto bhavati stabdo bhavati atmarama bhavati. The next moment he is in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And then everywhere he sees God, inside, outside, everywhere. So one moment of divine madness brings us eternal freedom. Freedom is eternal. Huh? There is some sampradayas these days, funny. You know, you might have heard of Brahma Kumaris. And they say that mukti is for 5,000 years. Again we have to come back. That is their idea of mukti. But mukti means if we are released from bondage, who will bind us again? So mukti is always eternal. And so, the divine madness, one moment of divine madness, extreme love to God brings us eternal freedom. Then he directly takes the name of Narada. Both of these are from Narada only. But Bhakti, says Narada in his explanation of the Bhakti aphorisms, is intense love to God. Narada even does not say God. Narada says the innermost reality. So, innermost reality is God. So Swamiji takes the name of God. So, intense love towards the innermost reality. Intense love to God. Intense. Intense why? Because I and my are the obstructions. And the love should be so intense that it will cross over this I and my. And in spite of this I and my, it will take me to God. Bhakti has no external obstruction. The only obstruction is I and my. And everything coming out of I and my. But the love has to be so intense that it will make me cross them. That is Parama Prema. So in Narad Bhakti Sutras, Satu Asmin Parama Prema Rupa. That Swamiji is explaining as Bhakti, says Narada in his explanation of the Bhakti aphorisms, is intense love to God. Then 6 sutras Swamiji quoted in a jump, madness. But there are sutras 4 and 5, which explains what happens when we get this intense love, what happens when this bhakti is realized. That is given in the Sutra 4 and 5. When a man gets it, what it? Intense love. He loves all. Funny thing, huh? We love, A loves B, B loves A. That is no love at all. If we love God, and God being all-pervading, God being the reality of all, automatically universal love happens to this man. Universal love happens to this man. He loves all, hates none. To emphasize he loves all, it is said hates none. This will remind you of the 12th chapter of the Gita, Adveshta Sarvabhuta, Nam Maitra Karuna Evacha. No hate, but friendship or love for all. He becomes satisfied forever. Tripto Bhavati. In the 4th sutra, Yat Labdha Pumans Siddho Bhavati Amrito Bhavati Tripto Bhavati. Satisfied forever. If our desire is fulfilled, particular desire, then again that desire comes. If food is given, we feel, oh, I am tripta. And in a few hours I am again hungry. But if we realize God, the only reality, then forever this tripti, he does not want anything. The faculty of want vanishes from him. That is Bhakti Yoga. Now we have to check whether this Bhakti is a worthy name. Our ordinary Bhakti, is it worthy name of Bhakti? So, this is how Swamiji has started. This love cannot be reduced to any earthly benefit. We will take it up in next class. This is the 7th sutra of Narad Bhakti Sutra. So Swamiji is systematically following Narad Bhakti Sutra to define Bhakti in the beginning. And so the 7th sutra is Sa na kamayamana nirodha rupatvat. We shall take it up on the coming Thursday. So, we are in a completely new area today. We are in a completely new region today. We are in a completely rarefied atmosphere today by trying to listen to, imbibe Swami Vivekananda's Bhakti Yoga. Om Paratatve Sadalino Ramakrishna Samagyaya Yo Dharma Sthapana Rato Viresham Tam Namamyam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. हरि ओम तत्सत श्रीरामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु. फुलावर